Hey, que Pasa Calexico? Welcome back to the podcast. Like always, before we begin, I want to thank my sponsors. I want to thank my anchor sponsors. Thank you, Jake and Sergio. Thank you guys for sponsoring the podcast. I also want to thank David Gasellum. If you're thinking of buying or selling a home in the Imperial or San Diego counties, make sure you contact David Gasellum at 760-235-9576. He's not only a realtor, but an investor with over 20 years of experience. He will not only sell you a property, but teach you along the way in one of the most important investments that you would make. You can also find David Gasellum on Facebook. Just make sure to search his name or just give him a call, 760-235-9576. Also, before we begin, I want to thank everybody out there in the front lines, our doctors, nurses, truck drivers, police officers, people cooking the meals at schools, people stocking our supermarkets, pharmacists, anybody in the front lines, our teachers, everybody out there. Thank you guys for, trying to keep us, safe and, as normal as we can, when we need to buy our groceries or medicine and stuff like that. Also want to remind everybody to shop local. Some of the people that are being most affected with this situation we're in are our local businesses, and most of them are our friends and neighbors. So make sure to support local businesses. If it's like a restaurant or whatever, I'm sure that they're doing pickup or delivery. Just make sure to contact them to see what their options are. And today, today's guest is somebody that I've been following on Instagram for a while. I really wanted to talk to him, face to face, but due to circumstances, we have to do this through Zoom. But I've been following him for a while, even though I don't have any hair. It kind of caught my eye a lot, the things that he's doing here in the Valley, just because this industry that right now it's probably in a stagnant, but this industry before we got into this mess was really booming. For somebody that doesn't go pay for a haircut, I noticed that barbers had become this kind of like they had like this celebrity status in a sense. Today our guest is Fernir Lynn, otherwise known as the Barber Director on Instagram. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Before we begin, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I own and run Learning Institute of Southern California in El Centro. I've been open for about 2 years. I'm the director, and I'm also an instructor there. I have 2 kids. I'm from El Centro. I'm 37. The normal background stuff. I grew up here in the Valley. I did move away for a few years here and there to go to school and stuff like that. I like playing sports. I play soccer, I play basketball. I was going to the gym before all this mess happened. I miss going to Mex for tacos and stuff like that. I'm your typical Imperial Valley, native that lives all the fun stuff that we like to do out here. That unfortunately for us, it's all shut down right now. But yeah.
So your Instagram name is Barber Director. So it's because of the school that you run here in the Valley.
Yeah, my Instagram I've had for 8 years now. The Barber Director one. I used to be called Barber_Fernie. I used to always joke around and say, "Oh, I'm the only Barber Fernie in the Valley," blah blah blah, and stuff like that. So that's what I was. But I changed it a couple years ago once I opened the school, because that's obviously my position. And I always teach my students about trying to have like a unique name and fun name that kind of goes with what their business is. And that's like one of the examples I could always show them. Barber_Director is straight to the point. It's the only one on Instagram, and just the little pointers that I try to help my students out with when it comes to social media and stuff like that. Things that I've learned over the years.
So can you tell us a little bit about the Learning Institute of Southern California?
Yeah, so Learning Institute of Southern California is a barber school here in El Centro. Like I said earlier, I've been open for about 2 years now. It's the only traditional barber school in the Imperial Valley. We do have a beauty school in Brawley. But the 2 schools, we have the same goal ultimately, to try to get our students prepared for the state exam so they can get their license, and so these people can work in the hair field, whether it's barbering, cosmetology, makeup, whatever it is. But yeah, glad to be one of only 2 schools here in the Valley that offers that type of training. We have 34 students currently. We've had about 15 graduate over the last couple of years. A few of them have successfully gotten their their licenses. Some of them are waiting test dates, so hopefully the numbers go up. And yeah, so traditional barber school in the state of California, basically, if anybody wants to cut hair in the state, you got to go to school so you could be eligible to take the exam, and if you pass the exam, you get your license. And so that's what we're all about every day. We're training them hands-on. We teach a little bit out of the book. We teach a little bit from the rules, and a little bit from the experience of the instructors, to try to kind of get them that best knowledge that they need to know while they're at school. That way, when they get out there, they're kind of prepared for a little bit more than just figuring out how to do this haircut. And, nowadays we like to teach our students a little bit more than what goes on behind the chair, like business stuff. And, anybody going to business for themselves, they have to learn a little bit more than their actual trade. They have to learn about the general rule of business. And so we try to teach them a little bit of that as well.
Do you own a barbershop as well, or you just run the school?
No, I just run the school now. I used to have my own shop back in the days, and then I used to work at another couple shops here in the Valley. Moved around a few times. When I closed down back in 2012, that's when I started planning for the school. And it took me a while to kind of save up and prepare for the school. So I had to move around a little bit. I went to San Diego a couple times and back to work at different locations, different type of businesses in the barber industry, like a barber school, Navy base. I sold barber supplies. I worked at a salon. I did a little bit of everything, that way when I opened, I was a little bit more prepared for my students, it's obviously the best thing to offer your students stuff like experience. And that's why I wanted to do every possible position you could do in this hair industry. And so, when I had the time and I was, kind of traveling and commuting and all that, I made sure that I was just like, writing down notes and filling up my brain with all these different angles of the business. That way, when I knew that when I finally opened, I would have a lot more to offer my students. And like I said, than just the haircuts.
We were talking before we started recording. Well, I haven't paid for a haircut in a long time, but I have noticed and even I said it in my intro, like how, barbers or like haircuts, like there was a time where like they became like, this big social media thing. People started making like designs on their heads and do you feel that even now, do you feel that barbers are getting a lot of popularity because of social media and stuff like that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, social media helps. I mean, to each his own. I know some barbers that are good. They don't have social media presence. I know some barbers that are not good and they have a big social media presence. I mean, it is what it is. It's an extra tool that a lot of barbers are using, obviously, to better their business, to get themselves more clients. And it's a very good tool. Honestly, it's free marketing. It's a free way of connecting and networking with people, not just other barbers for other opportunities, but also with your clientele. I think that if the clientele base, if everybody knew that you could get a hold of any barber hairstylist through Instagram, I mean, there's just a lot of money left out there from the people that, I mean, not everybody's on Instagram, not everybody's on Facebook, not everybody's on, social media. So you do have that large amount of people too that doesn't go that way. But I mean, it's a good tool. So when you talk about it, like you asked, do I think Instagram is helping with that? Yeah. But the real boom in this industry did come, I want to say at the turn of the century, maybe like around 04, 03, 04, 05. And it's funny because that's when I went to barber school. I actually I took off to barber school in 2003. That's right around the time that all these new styles started coming in. If you think about the 90s, all it really was high skin fades and, slick backs, and the cholos were shaved their heads. And I mean, I know here locally, in the Valley, it was either the cholo or you had a high skin fade and you were cool, right? But once I want to say either like Poly D and like the little spiky, the taper, or like when P. Diddy had like that faux hawk when he ran the marathon, like around 03 or 04. That's some of those things is kind of what helped it. So, I mean, like I said, the 90s high skin fades, that's it. There was not even no beards either. And we'll get into beards because that was another boom. But right around like 03, 04, a lot of popularity came with a lot of these people that people started noticing, because they were characters of whatever show or platform they're using, but they had unique hairstyles now. Like I said, P. Diddy had that fro hawk. First time we ever see a mohawk with a little bit of style, and made people want to get it. Because you think about the '90s, if you had a mohawk, you were like a punk rocker. That's it.
Yeah.
I can't think of nobody else. And then you had like Pauly D that had the taper, and then the spiky hair, and then the lineup, and then you started getting. I think what it really was too is like cultures. Like before the boom, I mean, all the black barbershops had all that stuff already. If you think about like Atlanta, the East Coast, Chicago, obviously there's a lot more African American people there, and so these black barbershops, they always had these things. It just, what it was that we started figuring out how to throw that into, straight hair, what we call it in barber school, like, Latino hair, Caucasian hair, straight hair. Once we started doing lineups and all that, and people saw that it was possible and that you could do different things to your hair, it started booming. And so it wasn't just your typical fade anymore. You had drop fades, and then in the bag, and then you had like the lineups. You had to leave the corners dark. We got really detailed as far as doing these type of haircuts. So it boomed a lot, and that itself was very intriguing to a lot of people. So, I mean, honestly, it kind of happened like this, where if you were getting a haircut and you're going to your barber, and then he started doing different type of haircuts, and you saw the guy in front of you, or the guy that just got a haircut in front of you got something a little different this time, it's going to intrigue you, and you're going to ask about it. And that's all we need, like in the barber industry, is just a client to ask one question about a hairstyle. And if it's a good barber, if he has good customer service, and he knows how to, knows how to work it and all that, because not everybody can do every type of hairstyle, but there's ways of making people feel like they have a certain hairstyle, a certain haircut. So if you know how to kind of flavor it up, you'll talk them into it. Maybe not the first time, but by the next time, they're going to want that hairstyle. And then now what happens is you start charging more, because it's more detailed. It's not just your typical fade. You have to start giving detail to the front. And then obviously then came the beards, right? Like about 07, 08, 09, actually I want to say a little later. I want to say about 2010, 11 is when the beard started coming back, like full-fledged, where we were getting the lines, this is getting faded out, and so forth. And obviously it mattered because of how your haircut would finish off. I mean, basically you have this whole thing connected now. So the haircut started getting a little bit more expensive, and so there was just the boom, and then the supply and demand, I guess you call it. I mean, and then with Instagram coming around those years too, they just kind of both grew together. Like barbers figured out how to use Instagram very well, and how to implement that into their package as far as being a business person. And together they just kind of went up,
Yeah, and especially like if, as it is, if you have a nice haircut, that itself is like a walking banner, right? Like you have a nice haircut, people are gonna be like, hey, that's a nice haircut. Who did it for you? That's that's free promo, right? But now when you have people posting, their haircuts, and then tagging whoever did the haircut, that's also like,
I think it's a little better, because the guy walking, he can only reach so many people, whoever saw him. But I mean, the guy posting it, tagging it, mentioning it, putting a story, putting a Snapchat, putting whatever it is, however many people that person has a following of. And sometimes like on Facebook, if you tag your friend, their friends see that post. So it's like, it goes beyond, your spectrum of your clientele and their friends. It goes way beyond that.
Yeah. So you mentioned beards. How complex is it nowadays, like to get like your beard cut, or like I don't know, like I said, I'm totally clueless when it comes to like haircuts and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think a lot of people are. I don't think a lot of people realize. And once we get into the coronavirus talk, we'll talk a little bit more about this. But I think a lot of more clients are more aware themselves now. I think there was only so much you had to know, like in the 90s. Let me get a skin on the side and a 3 on top. That's all you needed to know. Nowadays, if you don't know what it means to taper out the haircut and the beard, where ghost fade it, or let me line me up, edge me up, hit my eyebrows, drop the fade in the back, all these different little terminology. Yeah, terminology that we use in the barbering industry. Like a lot of clients know it now, and that kind of adds to it, because they feel, in other words, like barbering is a culture now. So if you like to play basketball, basketball is not just a sport, it's a culture. You have to know the terminology when you go to the court and all that. So when you go to the shop, I feel like a lot of clients feel like it's their duty to learn, all these terminologies, because when they don't want to, they go get a haircut and they want to maybe explore different options. They feel like they need to know how to explain themselves. So it's real easy to pick up on the terminology and all the new names and all that because Instagram, same tool. It's informing the clientele because the clientele, you know, when you want to go put rims on your truck, you start looking on Instagram, you hashtag, you know, rims, trucks, off-road, whatever. And you start seeing this and you start watching YouTube videos and watching the guys that put tires on or the off-roaders. So that when you go to the shop, you don't look dumb, you know, hey, I want some tires. And that's all you know. And that same, you know, aspect is going on in the barbershop because it's a little bit more upgraded. And same thing with the barber. The barber wants his business to feel more upgraded, has more potential to it, you know, more of a business. Then it has to be full-fledged, and you can't knock on the client for not knowing. That's why I say, because I think clients presume that they have to know, but they don't. A real good barber, they have good customer service. I would be able to tell exactly what a client wants based off of what they're saying that their lifestyle is, what their interests are, you know, and maybe if they bring up the word, oh, what kind of, you know, can I grow a beard? What can I do? By me looking at the beard, I'll be able to say right then and there, yes or no. Most of the time we won't say no. We'll say, this is how it is that we could get you a beard, but you got to do this. So it's important for the client to know a lot of this stuff. But honestly, if you ask me, like the original question was, how complex is it? To me, it's really easy. It's not really that hard. It's not that big of a deal. Hey, I want to keep my beard and give me a fade. It's kind of the same thing as the 90s we were talking about earlier, that it's just a fade. But it became that because at the same time, like I was saying, since the clientele does know a little bit more about that, they feel like they want to toss these words around now, and our barbers are kind of like, whoa, these, you know, they know what they're talking about. So, I mean, at the end of the day, for me, the good barber or any barber out there that understands that the job means that when you're there, you also have to express your personal opinion of what they just asked for. Because if you ask for a certain haircut and I'm looking at your hair and for sure you can't do that, I'm going to say right away, well, just so you know, your hair naturally doesn't do that. But this is what we can do to try to get it like that. But so that's what I'm saying. It's not as complex as I think our clients make it feel. You know, not to say that the clients are thinking it's all complex, but you know, there's a little bit more out there to it now. It's a little bit more of a nostalgia because people are like watching videos all the time and like, wow, dude, did you see that barber getting down with a knife or the straight razor? They had a hot towel, and it does add to it. So, you know, again, back in the 90s, I don't think we ever used to see anybody walking into no shop and getting no facial, no hot towel, beard, you know, lines on the eyebrows, designs, like you said earlier. You walk into shops now, you see all that, and it's like, wow, it amazes you. And so that in turn also kind of hypens up, you know, the environment, and in turn, that's where that celebrity status that you're talking about earlier comes into play, because barbers are getting booked. I mean, I'm very proud of the barber industry nowadays because you see barbers locally everywhere booked. Oh, you know, I have a Saturday left at 3 p.m. That's it. And it's like Wednesday. And it's like, wow, that's awesome, because it's good for the industry. Because if the industry booms and it makes money and barbers start, you know, claiming that income, you know, the profession itself starts getting raised to a higher standard. And when it comes to actual numbers for the state and the unemployment office and stuff like that.
Do you feel that this also contributes more, like, for you seeing that there's more people out there wanting to learn how to become a barber?
I think so, yeah. I think part of it is what I was talking about right now. It's a client. It's a regular client, and he's like, man, you know, that looks cool. I want to try that. And guess what they do? The first thing they do is they go buy a set of clippers at Walmart or wherever, and they try it. And it's kind of addicting. And then they start to think about, oh, okay, that's the first thing they ask. How much do they make? So they start investigating, and there's a lot of barbers that are pretty vague out there about what it is that they make, and there's a lot of barbers that will put it all on the plate for you, you know, and so they'll get their information. And that's important, because if there's somebody in his, you know, it could be an 18-year-old or a 35-year-old, but if that 35-year-old been doing something for 15 years and he's making okay money, but he's just not happy at work, and he's willing to risk it and try a new profession that in the long run might get him more money, but in reality, they're going for that, like, state of mind that they're doing something they really like, because it's crafty, you know, it's a crafty set of skills that you have to have, right? And so not everybody can pick up a drill and you know, go to construction, or not everybody can pick up a wrench and be a mechanic. So this is one of those industries that like kind of gives that same satisfaction, I want to say, because I know it does for me. And so when you get somebody, like I said, maybe he's been doing something for a while and he don't like it, or a kid that just comes out of high school and he's like, you know what, I am pretty handy. It calls that to attention. And then obviously some of the things that I always associate my school with is the fact that here locally and in general in California, but we have a lot of students in high school nowadays that they don't know what to do when they get out of high school. And it's important for them to know that they have options, that when you graduate from school, if you don't go to college or university, there is options out there like vocational trades, technical trades, like, truck driver, EMT, welder, barber school. It's one of them. And so it's really important for people to know that when they're 18, I got options. It's not so traditional where you have to go to college or you have to go to university, or there's no other option. And don't get me wrong, university and college is a very good goal to have, but not everybody has that connection to that, to that road. Maybe they need some other road, to get to where they want to be. So when they're 18, they don't know that option. They go on a different road, they get the job that they get, and then, like I said, in 10 years from now, they're gonna be like, okay, something's got to give here. I'm gonna go back to that one first thought I had, and then go back to try barber school. And for a lot of people, it works out. And I've seen it all, because I've been cutting for 17 years. Whether I was in barber school or had my own place or worked for somebody else, or now that I have my own school, I see all these different roads to get to where it is that they want to get to, and they come from everywhere, man. There's people that are all kinds of different professions, and they leave that work to do this, or they have all kinds of plans set for them by their parents, and then they decide to go to barber school. So yeah, there is a lot of there is a lot of interest out there for people, especially here locally.
I remember when I was in high school, a lot of my friends, used to do it from home, and you had like certain people that so and so, but like I said, back in the days, or like you said, back in the days, it was a little bit more simple, just to fade, and it wasn't too much as complex as it is now. But I had a lot of friends that used to do it from their garage, and like you would pay them like $5 or whatever. And do you get a lot of those that started at home and now want to get a diploma or something?
Yeah, well, it's a good option. It's something that's a lot faster too, because your typical schools, 2 to 4 years, college, university, whatever. Vocational trades are all usually less than a year, so it's something that even convinces people even more. Like, hey, I could reach my goals in a lot less time than I would if I just decided to go back to college or university. Yeah.
How I was looking at your Instagram, and I saw a while back you had a showcase. How common are barber showcases?
Oh, so those the type of event that I do, we call them barber battles. That's the main attraction. We have barbers that come together from all over to compete. Fastest fade, they get 15 minutes, and best fade at the end. Tag team, where 2 barbers get together and do designs. We've had braiding competitions. We threw in a little bit more for the beauty industry. This last one, I threw in a makeup competition and a hairstylist one. They're very common in the barbering industry. They're huge now. Honestly, I want to say that that's probably a multi-million-dollar business now, as far as if you get all the events, shows, expos. It's a multi-million-dollar industry when it comes to shows. Shows have always been around. Hair shows, they've always been called that. When I went to barber school back in 2003, hair shows at that time had already been in its like 20th year of existence, or probably longer, but I know as far as what it was at the time. And so a lot of these pioneers that got together and got these hair shows, it just became, I'm talking about like huge. Like there's this one in Vegas that's 4 days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's like $250 to get the ticket to get in. You can only buy a 2-day pass. It's huge. Like any other big event, like Comic-Con, Coachella, like this one is huge, right? So obviously there's a lot of smaller shows and events and organizations that put together their own version of this. And you do what you can with the resources you have in your area. So my first exposure to a hair show like that was when I was in barber school. I actually got to teach a haircut on stage as a student, because at the time we were doing those new haircuts. Those like the Poly D, exactly that haircut, the spiky hair with the taper. And I actually got to do that haircut on stage, and it was kind of an adrenaline rush that I had, obviously, and I loved it. And I remember that always resonated in me. Then over the years, over the next 10 years of my career, I went to like probably 1 or 2 shows, and that's it. I didn't really go. I was busy. I was cutting hair or whatever. And then obviously with the school, I started planning, so from the day I knew that I wanted to open a school, it took me about 6 years to finally get open. So I had a lot of time in between to plan and do a lot of things. So the show, the first one that I had was back in June 2017. So 3 years ago. that was before I had the school open, and I was like, oh, nobody's done this out here yet. Let's get one going. At the time, I had already made a few connections because around that time, like I said, I was traveling a lot. I was working in San Diego, and I was working at barbershops, selling barber supplies, working at a school. So I met a lot of different barbers. It wasn't the same. It wasn't like the same relationship I had here in the Valley. Not to say that I had hate or I was against any barber. It's just at the time when you own a shop, there's, you just don't get as close to each other, all the time. Which that's why a lot of these shows exist too, because you get all these barbers that own different shops and work at different barbers, and they get together and they mingle and they have a good time. So that was one aspect of it as well. But I know that I was making my connection, and I said, you know what? Now that I had these connections, there hasn't been any good shows in the Valley. Let's do it. So apart from wanting to see all the barbers compete, it was also part, giving local barbers and hairstylists, because I was really attempting to invite everybody in the industry, Cosmos, makeup art, everybody. I was trying to give them exposure to professional barbers coming down here and giving classes. Obviously the competition, the barber battle itself is another thing that boomed over. Probably that was a little bit more recent. That's probably been a little bit more over the recent, like last decade, the last 10 years, 8 years. It, a lot of these started because these big hair shows, they were more attracted to the cosmetology side. I don't want to say it was 100%, but barbers would go, but it was a lot more tailored to them. And so I think a lot of these barbers, they started, getting hired by organizations to kind of do more, barber related events. And I know that that's where the barber battle kind of, came from. And so it's huge now. They're everywhere. They're like every weekend, everywhere, San Diego, LA, Frisco, Texas, everywhere you think of. So like I said, I hopped on it. I did one. The reason I call it a showcase is because, yes, at the same time, it is a competition and they're winning money and trophies. But it was just a way for me to say, like, come down here, go to this event. You're going to see all the barbers from the Valley getting down, showing off their skills. Because, even though, there was only a first place, whatever, it's just seeing all the different haircuts, all the different styles, all that stuff came, it just popped in everybody's eyes. Like, wow, look at all these different barbers, and going back to what I was talking about earlier, I was really happy to see all these barbers that worked at different shops here locally in the Valley, because by this time there's a lot, man. Like you said, the boom in the early 2000s, it went from only a few shops in the whole Valley being open to like 30, 40 now. And so it was kind of cool. It felt good seeing all these barbers together, mingling, having fun. Even though they were competing in between each competition, they were like chilling, buying beers, drinking. And that first thought, like we were talking about earlier, originally came from Instagram, because, I remember one time thinking, like, throughout the time when I was planning for the school and all that, I was just looking at all these different barbers locally here. And I was like, man, these fools are on each other's comments, giving each other good, like, hey, like the little flame emoji or like the thumbs up. And I'm like, that's awesome, because I didn't have that when I was, a young barber with business owner, because not that nobody gave me props, just that the platform wasn't there. The Instagram wasn't there. I think there was only like a MySpace, but it wasn't even about that. and then a lot of the in fact, in those days, there wasn't even that many shops open. So it was cool to see that the camaraderie evolved here in the Valley, and because they all went to school together, even though they didn't work at the same shop, they still kind of supported each other. And so that was a huge buzz, seeing all the barbers mingling and chilling together, competing with each other at that event. And then I had it for 3 years. This past November, it was the third year in a row I had it. It was cool. I had a lot of fun. I've had it at 3 different venues. Actually, I want to stick to the same venue. And the last one I had it at Truth Nightclub. I mean, they treated us very, very well. Shout out to Booty and everybody, all his team out there. It's a really good venue out there. But like everything else, they're shut down right now as well. So still give them a plug.
Yeah. You mentioned the shutdown. How has all this crazy stuff that's going on affected you? And I know that you've been talking to barbers and stuff like stylists on Instagram. What's the feedback you're getting from everybody out there?
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough, definitely. I know it hits everybody. I mean, it affected me even before the original shutdown, because about a week before the governor gave his notice, I had already stopped taking services for the public. Like, so we weren't doing no actual haircuts at the school. And I had explained to the students, like, hey, you know what? Obviously here, my number one priority is not selling haircuts. My number one priority is you guys is training. And there's a lot of things that a student can do in barber school that they continue the training. It's not just cutting hair. They study a little bit more from the book, make a test, or we have doll heads, obviously, and each other, because they could cut each other's hair. or even close. I was limited it down. I think I limited it down to, limited it down to their family members only, like close knit family, if they wanted to do that. And honestly, I didn't know how. I mean, I think I did that the Monday before that Thursday where it shut down. So it only lasted 4 days. So I mean, I had no idea it was gonna go from this to this. I was actually planning something like that already because like I was like, I didn't want to go into this with my head cut off. So I was already like, all right, I got to start thinking about what's going to happen in case, I have to shut down the school or something like that. But I didn't know it was going to happen that fast. So for me, it affected it because it shut us down. But good thing for me that I got approved from the state to do distance learning. So all my students are doing everything online right now. That's why, I mean, the Zoom, something that we have been doing a lot, and I use FaceTime. I'm sorry, Facebook Live as well. But I know for barbering in the industry itself, like the business of it, it's pretty tough because here locally they're all closed. We went along with the state issue one because originally the Imperial County Health Department didn't release anything on barbershops. I think they either forgot or I don't think they thought it through, but because the state one had shops closing down. So I think by the time that people realized it was a bigger issue than just the valley, I think that's when a lot of barbers started asking a lot of questions. Everybody was reaching out and asking each other on Instagram, hey, what's going on out there? Because I know we were the first state to close down. And it's a huge deal because we consider our state board of barbering and cosmetology, we consider our department like supposedly the most strict one out of all the states. And to shut them down, it was crazy to see that they emailed us and said, hey, we have no control over that. If the governor says you guys can cut, you guys can cut. But if the governor says you guys can't cut, well, it's up to the governor's notice. We have no control over that. So for right now, you guys do whatever the governor says. You, as of now, you're approved through the state to do your practice. But if they say you can't, then you can't. So, it shut everybody down. And I know it's pretty tough for a lot of barbers. And, there's a lot of barbers out there pretty frustrated because they can't get to work. And I get it. There's a lot of bills to be paid. And nobody was planning on this, as much as we say that we should prepare for, in business, always have some money set aside. Nobody can prepare for this. So it's tough out there. They're all closed.
So like when it comes to, getting, informed, like as to when to open and stuff like that, it's, the state board that lets you guys know when you're free to go, or this.
No, well, like I said, as a state board, if you when you go to their website, all it really says is we have no control over this. You have to go based off your county or state health department. So whatever's higher. If the Imperial Valley says that you can cut and the state one says you can't, we have to go with the highest one. But if the state one says you can and the local one says you can't, well, you can't because you're in the local. But it all depends on how you look at it and how you do it. Like I said, this goes through all the service industries because the only service industry that it didn't affect 100% was restaurants because they could still sell takeout, right? Or deliver. But for hair in general, like cosmetologists, barbers, then you have your makeup, you have your piercers, you have your tattoo artists, you have your estheticians, you have your massage therapists, all that's shut down. And so we all have to go by whatever health department is the highest one in charge, and whatever they say is what goes. So as of now, there's still no reopen order yet for barbershops. But I know as soon as the state or the government or the local government says something, county health, we don't have to go and ask the state board for permission. We're already approved. They already said just go off of what they say.
Okay, yeah, because I saw that Governor Newsom came on today and said something about July, maybe. But yeah, it's hard, like, because you're so close to the customers, like, it's hard to really, practice social distancing when it comes to, hair cutting and stuff like that. Unless you have like a N95 mask while you cut hair.
Well, it's not. Honestly, you could ask any barber right now. I know why everybody's mad. The reason why everybody's mad in this industry, which we have a right to, because what we teach in school is exactly that. Like, we literally teach to disinfect your workstation, use clean tools, sanitize your hands between every cross contamination. So if I have a comb or I have a little piece of paper where I put the alcohol and I touch the client's neck to close their pores, and I throw it in the trash can, I'm already sanitizing my hand. We've been doing this routine since school, and most barbers, they continue that same routine onto their shops where they disinfect and clean everything. Maybe not as thorough because we're a lot busier, but I know everybody still sprays their stuff, wipes down, and for the most part. Yeah, there are other barber that side of the industry that doesn't do all that, but that's just how all industries are. There's your, that's your standard, and you go based off of that. But for us, it wouldn't be anything crazy new to have to do when they lift the order. When we go back to work, most barbers are gonna. I mean, I don't know if you've seen that whole trending thing seen on Instagram. The barbers have been using gloves and masks already for the last couple of years. It's kind of it's one of these things that picked up a lot in our industry. So the gloves and the mask thing is not a big deal. We not everybody, obviously, not even a huge majority, but there's a big group that does use them, but it's not everybody. But gloves, we've always had gloves at the school. We always teach our students that regardless of your connection to the client, treat them as though they're infected 100% with something.
Yeah,
that's how you teach.
And if you think about it, we've had other epidemics like the swine flu, H1N1. Should have been something that, like you said, like should have been a little bit of a common sense when it comes to people dealing with somebody with such close proximity.
People forget though.
Yeah. And like you said, like sometimes you're like in a you have appointments and whatnot. You're trying to service all these people, and so like I mean, it's understandable that you're not always gonna have stuff on or whatnot, clean, disinfect, every single time. But yeah, like I mean, if you think about it, even like in hospitals, in doctor's office, people should think about that. Where it comes to like having some kind of protection. I mean, it's I think because of this, a lot of things are going to change like that. Like people are going to be more cautious about wearing masks, especially when it comes to like going to a doctor's office.
And you see, like in China, they never stopped wearing masks since like that first SARS for me. I mean, because I'm like in when was it 2000, 2001, around that time, right? I was probably like in high school or just out of high school, and for me that was one of the first cases I remember where like China started wearing masks, like the whole public. They would show video and all that, right? And like they never stopped after that. Yeah. And I think here in the Valley, or I don't know if it's like a Valley thing, Cali thing, United States thing, but I know here in the Valley we forget a lot too, because I remember like my best example, I always tell my students, especially, that people like to forget their routine, and we got to make sure we don't forget our routine. But like when the earthquake happened here 10 years ago, the Easter one, where everybody was like tying down their TVs and all, and nobody has their TVs tied anymore. They forget after a while. And if another earthquake hits, everybody's TV is gonna break again, because I mean, mine's are not strapped. A lot of people do have them on the walls now, but you know what I mean. You'll still see TVs like not tied down, and supposedly we're gonna have all the muebles tied down and everything. And people forget, and that's kind of the same concept that we try to teach our students too.
Yeah, even like when people started going crazy at the supermarkets, you would think, we went through this earthquake thing. We live in a place where, we can have a big earthquake anytime. So we should be prepared, but, no. we live so comfortable that, and we don't really.
And there's a lot of people that prepare and, they stock and stuff like that. But, like I said, it's just the human nature thing. Nothing wrong when people forget. But, back relaying this to what we're talking about is in the barbershop, the barber always has to have that precautionary measure state of mind, because it could be as simple as the flu. It's not going to kill me, or it can, but I mean, I don't want to miss work. So it's like a common courtesy that your clientele should know already, that if they're sick, they shouldn't go want to get a haircut. If you have symptoms, especially right now, if you have any kind of those symptoms, I wouldn't want to get a haircut. I wouldn't want to put anybody in danger, much less somebody put them out of work. But that is some of the things that we as barbers have to prepare for, and we teach that in school as well. That the business side of it, are you really going to make that decision that can put you out of work? But it also goes for the public. Like it's good for us that not necessarily that this happened, but the fact that, like you said, it's going to change. People are going to be always with masks on. If they have symptoms, not going to go anywhere. Sanitize your hands, and that's important for us because we touch those clientele, all the time, and we don't want to contract anything from our clients because it puts us out of work, and and then that sets off a whole group of other messes as well, obviously.
Yeah. We often talk about in this situation we talk about waiters and cooks and all these people in the food industry, and there's a lot of people doing charity events to help them out. Do you know if there's any kind of charity event that's out there for like barbers that are out of business right now?
You know what there is? There's a lot of and big applause to a lot of these people that are in the industry. But there's a lot of people in the industry, a lot of organizations and companies in this industry, in the barbering or hair industry, that are doing like raffles or doing like giveaways of money. There's this one, Barber Society LA. Louis runs everything. Their little organization, they like a fundraiser, and that money they're donating $500 like once a week to barbers. All they gotta do is enter like a Instagram contest, raffle, and once a week I think they pick a winner. And then there's these other companies out there that are big companies and they're doing the same thing. And then of course, if barbers, for most of them, the ones that you claim that do their taxes every year and then they're legit and all that, they also get to apply for the Small Business Administration loans that are out there through the COVID relief funds that they released for small businesses. So there's some that cover your payroll, there's some that cover expenses during this time. If you've been shut down due to the pandemic or whatever, you qualify for some of these loans, and some of them you don't have to pay them back. I think if you get 10,000, you don't have to pay that back. And if you get anything more than that, they're only charging like 3% interest, and they're relaxing their requirements as well. So they're bringing down like the credit score. They're doing all this stuff to allow the opportunity for a lot of small businesses in general to be able to get some kind of help. It might not replace the income that we're lost during the time, but at least it's going to cover us during this time. That's important for a lot of people to know that are in business for themselves, that you're never going to get back what you lost, but at least if you don't dig yourself too much in a hole during this time either, that's great too. I know a lot of barbers. I've been all over Instagram since the pandemic. I've obviously just the news too, but it's good for me to be plugged into the industry, and they're all over. I mean, for barbers, it's all on Instagram, everything. I mean, yeah, there's a little bit on Facebook, yeah, there's a little bit on everywhere else, but I mean, Instagram is the number one go-to for a lot of information that barbers want to know, especially the important stuff. And so a lot of these organizations, they're doing their lives, and they're doing their contest giveaways and their information and their posts and their stories to make sure that the barbers are informed. And so when we look to these people during this time, they're putting out some good information out there, and it's good to know that there is something out there to cover whatever it is going to help with during this time.
Yeah. You mentioned Instagram. Like I said, I saw that you've been doing like Instagram lives and trying to chat with your fellow barbers and stuff like that. Can you tell us a little about the conversations you've had with your fellow barbers?
Yeah, they've been pretty cool. I do that for a couple of reasons. Obviously, yeah, to stay connected is really important, and for people to get information from each other is really nice. I also do it for my students. So I usually go on our private Facebook page that we have for my students, and that's what I use sometimes for class sessions or whatever. During this time for that we're closed down, we're doing online training. And I'll let them know, hey, we're gonna go on there in about 10 minutes or half hour, whatever time it is. I'll let them know, and they're eligible to be able to take notes of the conversation of the live show, and they could get credit for that as work, because I would be doing it anyways, because I just I like staying in contact with people using Instagram and all that. But I'm teaching them the business of barbering right now in school. That's chapter 21 that we're working on, and so all this is kind of like a very, very good teaching point to show them. Like I was talking about earlier. Make sure you have some money set aside in case you have to close down. Obviously, the standard is set a lot higher now because of this. I'm thinking like be closed for 2-3 weeks, not 6 months or so. But it kind of helps because it shows them, since they're all on Instagram. One of the things that I don't require my students to, but like all of them do it anyway. But I always ask them when they enroll, make an Instagram, a business one though, not like your personal one. Make a business one, set aside. Come up with your crafty name, like I told you earlier about the Instagram handle name. Come up with something unique that might attach your name to something in the industry or whatever you want to do, but do that. And they all do it. Most of them do. I think like probably all of them have it. Maybe one or two don't have it. No, I think they all do. Anyway, so I do that because I want them to get the best, have access to the best platform. And right now in the hair industry is crazy, man. These going back to our earlier conversation, talking about like the, barbers having celebrity status. Well, I'm pretty sure you've seen on Instagram, but some of these barbers are traveling, doing haircuts everywhere now. Like I had an opportunity to do some of that as well. Not on a large scale, but it's fun, man. It's really cool to see opportunities for barbers out there to get paid to do more than just haircuts. Like they're getting flown out to do shows in New York, London, everywhere around the world as part of these hair shows and these, educational seminars. And so a lot of these companies, what they're doing is that they're just, since they're barbers, but they're not cutting hair, and all they have time for is to do the traveling. But guess what? The traveling is closed. So these companies are paying these barbers to do live demos on Instagram. And so they're doing haircuts on there, and they're doing question and answering and Q&As. And so I tell my students, if you guys take notes of it, there's like a little sheet that I made that they could download or print or use on their phone. And they just take notes on whatever they're watching. Man, it's cool because like we would be, I would have probably switched to this if we hadn't been on this chapter, but it just happened to be we were on this chapter. And so it's important for them to see not only that the haircut that they're watching, but look at the tool that they're using. They're using social media, they're using, electronics, they're using lighting, they're using cameras. And this is all stuff that we were learning anyways, but now they're actually getting to see with their own, eyes that, oh, wow, look at the barber industry. Like this guy right here, not everybody had the opportunity, but this barber, at least if he's not cutting hair, at a shop, but at least this company like has him on this live show doing a demonstration. And it's a good opportunity for not only aspiring barbers, but, we still learn from each other. Me, if I want to learn this trending new cut, I don't just magically know how to do it because I've been cutting hair for a long time. I still got to go learn it. And so Instagram's a good tool for that. And so it's really, really awesome to see that my students are getting to see this live action stuff going on. And so these interviews that I do, I like to stick with people that are obviously in the industry, that have a little bit of feedback on the pandemic and how it's affecting them during this time. And I actually had a couple interviews in the past. I wouldn't really call them podcasts. I'd call them Facebook interviews. I use live. And what I would do before my barber show, the showcase, I would interview like barbers that are either going to compete there or people that are connected to it. And I know that I had a lot of fun doing that because it was obviously mostly local barbers. And it's fun to kind of get in and put them on blast for a little bit and see what they have to say, talk about their opinions and all that. And same thing with these interviews that, like you said, that you got to see. I like to bring on the local barbers and, some barbers from out of here too, and see what their opinion is, or anybody I could get on that has like some kind of input on what's going on. And like I said, it's good. It's good material for my students to use as part of the training.
Yeah, it's because I work on my 9 to 5 is in education. I work for high school here in Calexico, the high school here in Calexico.
Nice.
And we're I'm helping teachers out with the whole distance learning, putting information out there for the kids and whatnot. And it's cool that you're this kind of like in the same field, and you're using Instagram to kind of have like how teachers sometimes bring people from their field or the subject into the classroom, and so you're basically doing that but via Instagram. It's pretty cool. It's something that
because that's a normal thing we would do at the school when we were on normal operations. I bring in barbers, especially all the local barbers, and I can't thank them enough for always supporting and coming out and wanting to help. But we always bring the local barbers in, and they do haircuts. We call them demonstrations, and we usually I have my lesson plan printed out, and usually I like to schedule them ahead. But I'll take them even if it's a surprise. That my students are willing to drop the book any day to go see a barber come in and do a haircut, because that is probably the best teaching material. I always tell my students, when you're here, you're not going to master the haircut because that takes time. It takes 2 years. You're only going to be here 10 months or whatever. But get the knowledge part, get all this stuff that it's going to take you a long time to learn, but learn it from us. And when these barbers come in and doing haircut, it's good to see the haircut and learn some technique. Very important. But ask them questions. Ask them how they got where they're at. Ask them what decisions they made. Ask them what's the pros and cons. do all those questions, because that's the stuff you're not going to get anywhere else. You're going to get that. It's more important to them as a student than it would be as a barber. And as a barber, you still have a lot of knowledge you need to kind of accumulate, but as a student, you want to just be able to soak it all in, so that way they have a little bit more detail into going and making any kind of business decision they're going to make. But the distance learning, it's obviously really, really crucial to what we're doing now. We have an app that our students use through the same publisher that's the company that publishes our books, the Milady's standard barbering textbooks. They have an app as well through the publisher, Cengage, and so that's what we use. They log in, they are able to see their work, their assignments that I issue for them, and then they have different platforms on how they can turn it in, like either through the same account or through Google Classroom. And I use Facebook a lot. They could DM, they could text me. So I mean, all these tools are, kind of, it kind of makes the job easy. It's just it's real tedious work, like where you always got to be checking, make sure the students are turning stuff in and stuff like that. Because for me to give them credit, because barber school is all based off of hours. It's a 1,500 hour program, 1,500 hours. So what I trade off for them right now is that if they're clocking in every day and doing their work, then not only do they get the amount of hours that they're in, but every assignment they do counts as an hour, 2 hours or whatever. And for every demo that they see, counts as an hour, because most demos are about an hour. And if we get on Facebook Live or Zoom chat, I count that as an hour. So it's they're trying to at least accumulate 20 hours a week for right now. So even if they were full time, the only thing I can really promise them is 20 hours a week right now. But better than nothing. And I'm glad we have all these tools, all these resources to be able to accomplish that right now.
Yeah. What's one of the things that you miss the most from like actually being in the classroom with your students and, mingling?
Probably my students. They make it fun. I mean, they're all from different backgrounds and stuff like that. So it's really fun sometimes. Obviously we have a task at hand and everybody's there to work and study, but obviously it's still barber school. So it's the environment starts there. I mean, that's how it was when I was in barber school. The camaraderie, I'm like I told you earlier, it's very, very important that these barbers here in the Valley locally are all united. I mean, for the most part, everybody gets along very, very well. They all, give each other support on Instagram and in real life and stuff like that. But it all starts in barber school, I think. And so because, my barbers understand, it's funny because, right now I'm making them do a project where they're planning for the name of their business, logo, and the type of ownership. Now, do you guys want to partner up with somebody? Or you guys want to do individual? That's a very important choice because that's always an option. And obviously a lot of them picked individual because we're distance learning right now. I bet you that if we were still regular schedule right now where we were at school, a lot of them would have probably picked partnership just to kind of do the project together. And so that bond is going to be something they're going to remember the rest of their lives. I have friends that I still have to this day from barber school that I don't see them anymore because I went to barber school in LA. But even though it is here local, I mean, they all come from different parts like Calexico, Brawley, El Centro, and Holtville. And so they, they're really close right now and they're all going to break off and do their own thing. And so it's fun to see them enjoying that for themselves. I kind of get a kick out of that because I'm like, damn, that's cool. They're really close. And I don't, and not in a bad way, but I don't tell them this, but it's like, I know in the long run, they might not see each other. And it's cool because they're going to have these everlasting memories in school. And so that's what it turns into. And maybe the reason they do have that close knit friendship is because they probably do know that, in the long run, they're not going to be around each other maybe as much or see each other as much. And so I know that every time a student graduates, I keep in touch with all of them, like if they were still my students. Especially right now, it's weird because like I'm at home and I text and DM and Instagram comment with all of my former students, like all of them. They all become like friends in a way. So it's cool to see, like, I'm at home, so I'm texting and it's like, wow, it's like I still have all this communication contact with my students, current and former ones. I feel like if they were still in school too, because a lot of them are part of like group pages that we're all on too. Not the main one that I used to teach with, but there's other ones or group chats and text chats that, even former students are still part of and everybody gets a kick out of it. And so I know I miss that. I do miss having a routine, normal one, like going to work. I miss that part. Even though like when you work, it's work. But I was kind of, I feel like really fortunate to have a job where it doesn't even feel like a job when I go to. Like, I love what I do and I love my environment there. Just being there every day kind of. I do enjoy being home because I can't buy this time back with my kids, and even though everybody gets tired of each other, being locked up with each other, it's the plus side of it is I get to enjoy my kids' youth and all that, and I have been working a lot over the last few years, and to be home is kind of cool though. It's a okay trade-off.
Yeah.
For now.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, we've been at it like for almost an hour already. Is there anything that I didn't ask you or you want to talk about that I didn't bring up?
No, kind of just to add on what you said earlier about thanking all the frontline warriors, everybody in the healthcare system, doctors, nurses, paramedics, food service workers, grocery store, bankers. But hopefully they make barbers into essential workers. I feel like they deserve it. I think that all these ideas that I've been hearing on Instagram and everywhere about barbers having a plan already in place, and making the appointments an hour apart, disinfecting like we already were. I think what's going to happen more is barbers are going to do it a little bit more obvious in front of the client's face. Like when I'm disinfecting my barber, my comb, I'm going to be right in front of your face, and I'm going to be disinfecting. And that's kind of something we teach anyway, but we're going to make it more obvious. And I'm excited to see how all the barbers react to this when they get back. There's going to be a lot of work for barbers, I'll tell you that much. There's going to be a lot of haircuts to fix and a lot of long hair to chop off. And so I just feel like they deserve to get, the ban lifted off of them for now, because I think that they can be able to handle the sanitation and all that. And hopefully it happens real soon.
Yeah, hopefully. I'm a little scruffy, but I think I'm going to cut this off really soon because my wife's already giving me crap about it. And
but I bet you enjoy not shaving though.
And you know what? I don't really shave. Every time because I cut my own hair, so like I'll just run the machine through everywhere. I'll probably cut my hair today, but I'll leave the beard on, just to see how that goes. But yeah, thank you for taking this time. Like I said, I was really interested for a long time to see what you did, and because you're really active in social media, like in Instagram. Your content is really catchy. And so it, made me really interested, even though, like I said, I don't really know much about the barber business or the barber, industry because of my situation with my hair. Like right now, it's like, if I take my hat off, it's the crazy, like, cause, like I said, like for the past, I don't know, like 8-9 years, I cut it like once a week. And even when I go a little bit longer, you could see like, there's no hope. So like now that it's like super long from the sides and like there's a little patch right here, like a little island here, like it looks. So like yeah, like even like I said, even though I'm not interested in the sense that I want to go get a haircut. I'm not interested in the barber business. I was really interested in the sense, that I know that it's a booming industry. I know it's really big now because I have two boys that, I do take to go get haircuts, and I see all these kids with really really cool haircuts, and I know
it's really catchy for the youth especially.
Yeah, and I know prices have gone up, and as a parent it's like, wow, I'm spending like $50 per every time I take them to get a haircut. But now that I talk to you, and now that I know that there's more detail now than when I used to get a haircut when it was just like a fade or simple haircut. I know now that there's more time, more skill involved. It kind of like makes me understand why there's such a price increase from when I went to go get a haircut back in the days. But yeah, like I said, thank you so much for taking this time off. Hopefully, things go back to normal. The industry gets back on track, and yeah, me too. Maybe later on when all this is over, we could do the in-person one like you normally do. Yeah, for sure. Maybe I can stop by your school and talk to some of your students and whatnot. Oh, that'd be great. They'd love that. Yeah. All right, man. Well, thank you so much for like I said, taking the time. Thank you guys for listening. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.